Hello and welcome to the very newest Stat Rep. My name is Tyler Bortel and I am joined by
your boy Lukas V. Troller.
And today we are bringing you a hot and fresh new battle report prepping for the Warmasters GT coming up. That is the singles event at WTC this year, and it is looking to be a spicy one. I've got my Tyranids over here, and what are we up against, Lukas?
So Mortarion's Hammer Death Guard.
Oh, yeah, man. It is the pinnacle of the meta in the singles game right now and also in the teams, and it is a scary thing to deal with. This is my Warmasters list, and I want to see if I can handle it. Lukas, why don't you walk me through what kind of Death Guard we plan through today? What's your list?
Yeah, so I'm running Mortarion's Hammer. This is a pretty standard list. I've gone with my own slight little spin, though, and I'll talk a little bit about why once I run through all the pieces here. I've got 4 characters in my list. 2 of them are joined to Deathshroud Terminators. I've got a Lord of Virulence with free Overwatch. What's it called? These enhancements are very cool names. Shriekworm Familiar. And then I also have a bog standard Lord of Contagion. I have a second Lord of Virulence with Tender Emissions. This is the lone op enhancement that gives him a 3-inch or overall 1 to wound for vehicles. And then the final character I have is a Tallyman who's going to chill in my backfield, get me some CP. The core of the list are a set of 8 vehicles. I've got 3 Foetid Bloat drones with the 3 damage heavy blight launchers. I've got 3 Plagueburst crawlers, all equipped with Entropy cannons on the side, sponsons. And then I've got 2 Myphitic Blighthauler, which are going to provide some anti-tank support. Coming in via Deep Strike, providing rapid ingress threats, we have 2 units of Deathshroud. I've got a 6-man and a 3-man. And then finally, for some scoring and skirmishing, I've got 2 units of 10 zombies. So this is pretty standard list for Mortarion's Hammer. Obviously, the PBCs, the drones, and the Blighthaulers are all a known quantity at this point. The one variation I see most often with Morty's Hammer lists is how much Deathshroud to include. And this is there's no objectively right or wrong answer here, but I feel like if you want to be a bit of a pusher and you're playing teams, then a squad of 6 Deathshroud does you some really big favors. And that's kind of what I'm looking at as a faction like Morty's Hammer, seeing how well it can equip our Challengers Cup roster in the pushing role. And that's why I've gone with a 6-man and a 3-man Deathshroud here. So the idea is that if you're playing against melee Marines or something like that, where the Overwatch is very scary, you don't need like the max damage activation that the Lord of Contagion provides. You can join your 6-man to the Lord of Virulence, get a nice free Overwatch play going, maybe lined up with a rapid ingress as well, especially if you're on a later terrain format. And that kind of modularity can be really nice. Whereas if you're playing against Knights, Imperial, or Chaos, or you're playing against a big monster mash faction like Subterranean Assault, you can jam your Lord of Contagion with the 6-man and just provide one heavy-hitting piece that can go in, thunder smash one monster, and stand on an objective and control it. So I really like that modularity of being able to swap between the 2 lords with your big squad of Deathshroud. It is a little bit of a bummer that you lose out on like the proportional damage to points invested. The second iteration of 3 Deathshroud and the 6-man is 20 points more expensive than the first 3. What I mean by that is the first 3 are 140 points, the second 3 are 160 points, and they lose out on one of the flamers. So it's not a great return on investment, but I do like the ability to put one massive meaty problem in one section of the board and just lock it down from there. So eager to see how it goes this game. I am a little bit light on the screening resources. I know a lot of folks like running 3 Blighthaulers, maybe some drones with flesh mowers, or the little stupid piss flamers. And then also I only have 2 squads of 10 zombies. So it's a little late. We're going to see if we can make it work against one of the faster factions out there and see if we can keep the screens up. How about you, Tyler? What are you bringing today?
Yeah, man. So over here, we are playing a Subterranean Assault Tyranids. Now, we tested a lot of different builds for the Team USA comp for WTC this year involving Tyranids. Sam Pope had a lot of different ideas. The team had a lot of ideas of what he could end up taking. And this was by far my personal favorite. We ended up deciding to take absolutely none of them. For more thoughts on that, check out the recent Take All Comers episode about it. But This list is a lot of fun, and I think that it does a really good job playing into the whole skew meta that we're seeing right now between Death Guard and Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights. And then also it plays just fantastically into Marines. I know that at any point in time, if you're going to a singles event, you need to bring a list that plays really well into Marines in general because they're so damn popular. So I like this for that. And I think it provides good solutions to a lot of the kind of problems that Subterranean Assault fails to solve in some ways, while also providing a bunch of new problems for opponents to deal with that the original list might not. So we've got a Hive Tyrant, not the Swarmlord, but a Hive Tyrant on foot. So instead of having Vect, he has a comparable command point ability, but instead of Vect, he gives out Assault and Lethal within 6, and he'll have 2 fewer attacks in combat. I do take him with the Venom Cannon as well, like to get a little bit more range support. 201s is just real good for him. He's kind of the key to this list in my mind. He really makes it all come together. Then we've got a Neurotyrant with Tremor Senses. That's the redeploy 3. Going to be a really big deal with how many big bugs we have. And also just making sure that we don't have to struggle with any issues with putting too much stuff in strat reserves. Got a squad of 10 Gargoyles, a Biovore, 2 Haruspexes, a Lictor, 11 Neurogaunts, a Neurolictor, a Norn Emissary, 2 squads of 5 Raveners, 2 Tyrannofex with Rupture Cannons, and 6 Zoanthropes to join that Neurotyrant. So we are, similarly to Lukas here, a lot lighter on the ground than some other lists are in Subterranean. We are very elite, very monster focused on these 2 T-Fexes and the Norn, right? Those 3 models right there are 660 points. And then the Zoanthrope squad is another 325, right? So like half my army is those 4 units, but they are units that put in the work. We're going to see today if they can make it happen against the Death Guard. Yeah, like I said, this list is a lot of fun, but it is definitely riding the lightning, both with less trash and also only 2 burrower units, particularly sketchy in a world of Plagueburst crawlers. So if something can go wrong for me today, I think that's probably what it's going to be, but let's get right into it. What's our mission for today, Lukas?
We are playing Take and Hold, Hammer, and Anvil. So Hammer and Anvil, especially on WTC terrain, is not something that we see all the time. So I'm curious to see if this pretty unique terrain setup here is going to play a big part in the game. I think in particular, the way these, well, they're not really expansion objectives because neither of them is very favored for either player. But the way the Ruin, it kind of offers a little bit of shelter on the objective, kind of where your Neurolictor is down here. But also that there's a place to shelter behind the crate as well. So there's kind of 2 semi-safe places to defend while being on the objective. But also it's not like completely immune to attack, right? So I'm super curious to see how we play around those this game. I think we can see a couple angles already drawn that are gonna play a big part as this game progresses.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. For those of y'all following along at home, this is WTC board 4.5 for Hammer and Anvil, which is the ones that they recommend for singles and that are being used at Warmasters. So we'll see how it goes. Anything out of the ordinary in your deployment here, Lukas?
Not really. I've kind of tried to keep my PBCs spread across all 3 flanks. I like one anchoring my home objective just to provide something a little bit more sturdy than a Tallyman, especially against uppy downy armies that might want to attack back there relatively early on. And then on either flank, I've got a PBC as well. In case opportunity presents itself, I can use 1 CP move through terrain to blast the PBC through the wall and get on the expansion. I've put all 3 of my Foetid Bloat. I think the one thing that's most unique here is I've put my 3 Foetid Bloat drones all in the upper right-hand corner. I just don't think that the angles in the lower right offer much of anything. For the reasons previously discussed, Tyler's quote-unquote expansion down here by the Norn, there's not going to be good Foetid Bloat drone angles onto that objective if he doesn't want to give them to me. So I can't really shoot onto that. And then the shots onto the middle objective, if I'm in the lower right, are also pretty blocked. So I'd rather have the option to kind of circle around this way and this way to cut angles all the way downfield. And just kind of blast away a little bit. I think those prospects are a little bit better for me, and especially with move through terrain, it's very easy for drones to kind of team up they're individually a little bit unreliable as pieces, but as soon as you start adding in multiple of them, that's where they really get the reliable volume of damage 3. So having all 3 of them in a little cluster, I think, is going to pay off this game.
Sweet. Over on the Tyranid side, the big question mark for any game with this army is, where is your Norn going to go? And in this case, it's actually pretty straightforward. She's going to start over here and walk over to this objective. She doesn't quite fit touching the top one here without standing on that terrain, so there's really no protection for her there. Norns may be very durable, and they may make you feel like you should go stand out in the open, and that is the opposite of what you should do with these things. They are durable, so you should put them in safe places so that their durability actually keeps them alive instead of just necessitating a little bit more commitment from your opponent. So she's going to go play off that, which means that I'm going to need to be pushing Lukas off the other objective with OC and with Meat. So we've got one of our T-Fexes and our Tyrant lined up over there. Third T-Fex in the middle here, going to go take up this middle position. T-Fex are fantastic on WTC boards because they can see over walls. So a centralized position like this with this ruin unlocked will give him just like all these different angles to consider from, which is just a great spot for him to be in. We did use our redeploy to get the zone ropes off the board before this recording started, so they did start on the board. We've got 2 Haruspexes, the Neurogaunts, and the Gargoyles starting off. Those 2 Haruspexes and the Neurogaunts are collectively, 250, 295 points. So too many to also start the 325 for the zones with the Neurotyrant off, but we redeploy them off and we're good to go. I really just can't afford to let Lukas shell my Zoanthropes turn 1. He's going to get to shell somebody, and it's going to be a bummer, but the Zoanthropes are too important of a win con, as they're really my only explosive damage to deal with his Deathshroud, so got to keep him safe for now. Anyway, with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Who is going first today, Lukas?
It's the Death Guard. So, yeah, kind of interested to pick your brain after this game about whether or not you think going first or second was actually good or bad for me. I'm never mad about getting a essentially free volley of Plagueburst crawler damage in on turn 1 with no threat of reprisal. But ultimately, you are an uppy-downy army that slightly favors going second. And then also, it's going to be a lot harder for me to score primary over the course of this game, given that I don't have the safety net of a 10 or probably more likely 15 at the bottom of 5 as well. I'm imagining this is going to be a fairly slow-paced game where we're not just thunderdoming each other immediately. So I'm going to have some resources left at the end. It would be nice to score 15, but not in the cards this game. The Death Guard are going first. So as some return 1 cards, I draw Extend Battle Lines and Bring It Down. So 2 4-point cards on the table here. There's no real Bring It Down to be gotten here on turn 1. You're nice and safe, tucked in from the angles. You know, the most I can really do is take some pot shots, and that's not going to kill any of your monsters. Like the squishiest monster you have is a Hive Tyrant. It's not really on the menu for me to score 4 points in that on turn 1. But Extend Battle Lines, that's a nice, easy one to get on turn 1. So we're going to walk some zombies out, touch the middle objective. Going to make sure there's 2 of them so that the Lictor can't just get an easy contest. Obviously, there are simple shots for you to take and charges for you to make to flip that objective from me, but I want it to be some kind of commitment instead of no commitment at all. So we're going to go ahead and walk 2 zombies out, and then we spend a CP as well to put a Foetid Bloat drone on that top center objective. And his OC3 ass is going to be kind of nice. You know, it won't just be one Ravener towing on there with uppy downy to steal that from me. It's going to take some kind of monster coming forward to get on that objective, and hopefully I'll be able to answer that pretty early on here. Yeah, so grabbing that nice easy 4 points on Extend Battle Lines. Otherwise, just doing a little bit of staging, making sure there's going to be no tunnels that crop up in my backfield very early on by using our low knob Lord of Virulence in the upper right, and then a Plagueburst Crawler scooching back a little bit in the lower right, just to make sure you stay in front of me for at least a turn or 2 here. And then I've made the decision here as well to preserve the squad of zombies at the bottom of the table, behind that crate. And that's for a couple of reasons. First of which, if they move out, the Neurolictor is going to force them to take a battle shock test, which may make them a lot easier to pick up with some of your kind of light anti-infantry fire, like the Norn's blast gun, which might otherwise kill half a squad of zombies. But if you're +1 to wound, has a threat of wiping out the whole squad, and then maybe the Neurolictor goes and finishes off the last ones. I'd rather just like have that resource to maybe go and tie something up on that objective on turn 2 or 3. So they're going to play safe for now. Okay. And in terms of our Morty's Hammer targets on turn 1, I should talk about that very briefly. I did nominate one of your squads of Raveners, and then I also nominated your Biovore. The Raveners are kind of a primo target for the Plagueburst Crawlers because they go from toughness 5 down to 4, so I'm winning them on 2s, and they have only a 5-up save when they're afflicted. So the Crawler Mortars kind of tear them to shreds. The only thing that's really saving them is the little bit of efficiency lost for a damage 2 weapon going into a 3-wound model. But, you know, it's very likely that you knock out most, if not all, of your Ravener squad on turn 1 with 3 Plagueburst Crawlers. Obviously, you have to get past the hitting on 4-step. But after that point, it's pretty reliable damage, and then maybe a couple mortals as well. In this case, I did kill 4 of the 5 Raveners from one of the squads, which is great progress.
Nice. Sweet. So with extend for 4 and bring it down, we'll then clock it over to bottom 1. And yeah, sure enough, we're
Tyler.
Sorry?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. One more thing to mention before I pass it on over to you is I see this mistake made all the time, so I really wanted to quickly mention this. If you have any kind of ability to gain CP in your army, do not discard cards at the end of your turn. You can always discard them at the end of your opponent's turn. So in this case, I did tally, my Tallyman did get me a CP at the top of turn 1. So there's no reason for me to discard, bring it down at the end of my turn. I can wait to see what Tyler does on his turn and then proceed accordingly with my keying or discarding. I see this mistake made way too much. It's something to always pay attention to if you have Calgar or Azrael or a Tallyman or something like that in your list.
Absolutely. Good shout. Recent change to chapter approved, allowing that, whereas it hadn't been previously. I think it's hopefully not going to be around for long, but it is the way the game works for now, so definitely take advantage of it. And we'll go on into bottom of turn 1 for the Tyranids. So we're naturally going to pick up those 2 units of Raveners as they would like to uppy downy and get some tunnels down before that last guy gets picked up for good. We are going to draw Establish Locus and bring it down. And Establish Locus is going to be certainly achievable for 2 points if we wanted to. We've got Afflictor hanging out in the middle, but I think he's got some bigger aspirations. And then bring it down. Well, we'll certainly try to see what we can do about killing a vehicle. You can see up top here, I've rolled my advance off and I'm sending out my Tyrannofex, trying to get him in a good position, both to get on that objective and to be able to shoot at this drone that Lukas is trying to hide over here and then be relevant later on. The Tyrant's going to run up behind that to get 6 inches on both Tyrannofexes. Even though this one in the middle isn't going to have any targets currently, I'm very happy to let Lukas make the first move on Lukas, I guess. Let him come out and shoot me, and then I will get the heavy V bonus when I shoot back, as there are not a lot of things that really want to go after a Tyrannofex, and if you're going to expose one, you might as well expose both. The Norn over here is in kind of an awkward spot because she really wants to be right where that Neurolictor is, and there's really no way for her to get there just by moving unless she rolls a really big advance, and I really want her guns to go into those Poxies in the middle. So instead, we're going to make this more complicated than it seems like it needs to be, but I still think it's the correct thing to do for the efficiency. We're going to send the Neurolictor to that front pocket that Lukas talked about earlier behind the crate so that he can be safe and ready to battle shock anyone who comes in. And then we're going to drop in both squads of Raveners over by our Norn over here, the single man and the 5-man. The Norn's actually going to normal move and walk backwards. And then at the end of the movement phase, we're going to use the site-to-site teleportation stratagem, which is called something else, but that's what I tend to call it, to tunnel out into one of the tunnels made by the Raveners and out of the other one. So I've just sort of set up here the pre-measure where she wants to go. This spot up here is really nice for her because there's just no access coming down in this direction unless we get all the way into this terrain, which is fine. I'll have good recompense for that. And with this drone on hopefully taken care of, we're really going to limit Lukas's ability to put too much damage on me. So with that in mind, and she's out here, she's within 18 and has line of sight on the Poxies. She's going to put some good shots into them. I've also got this T-Fex, the small guns from this T-Fex, and this Hive Tyrant all lined up with them as well. So Lukas really does have to pull to behind the wall like he does here, pulls out a bunch of them. I am checking here to see if there's any way this T-Fex can do not recover assets, Lukas, and there is none, so that's fine. He's not going to score any points there, and instead my Lictor here will then get to charge in, finish off the last of these Poxwalkers, and tag the Blighthauler here. Unfortunately, I didn't check to see if Lukas could see me from his current angle, and he totally can. I wonder if I had gone the other way around, if we might have been able to hide there, but I'm pretty darn tall, so I don't know how realistic that is anyway. But him being in combat at least will mean that he's not going anywhere, and he's shooting at -1, which are both nice things. So yeah, I think we're applying a really good amount of pressure here. We do end up blammoing this drone over here. Man, our T-Fex is fun, shooting at Death Guard vehicles, hitting on 3s, roll 1s, lethal, winning on 2s, just get that shit off my table. But anyway, digging this, chucking established Locus, which means at the end of battle round 1, it is a 4-4 tie. And we'll send it over to top of 2. Lukas, what are we doing?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll do is make my decision of whether or not I want to keep Bring It Down. In this case, because I have a Norn that I am going to put shots into and a Tyrannofex that I am going to charge with 6 Deathshroud joined to a Lord of Contagion, I'm going to go ahead and keep Bring It Down, believe it or not. As I imagine I'll be getting at least one of those at the end of this turn if things don't go catastrophically wrong.
Sorry, one more thing, Lukas, before you get into it. The circles just like weren't appearing, I guess, for some reason. It spawned in my score mine up here on turn 1, which is going to finish locking out the Deathshroud from getting anywhere. Between this 6 and this 6 and this 6 and this 6, the Deathshroud are forced to be basically up here, out in no man's land, trying to charge in, or they can come in from the front. And those are really the only options available to you there. So spore mine placement, very important. Continue on. My apologies.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because this is one thing that I see people do incorrectly against Morty's Hammer all the time. It's not that each unit needs to block 6 inches. That's a very inefficient way to screen against this subfaction. It's that units need to support each other, right? So, like, if the Morty's Hammer player chooses to afflict some kind of unit in the backfield, well, then some other unit that's right next to them is also projecting a 9-inch screen as well. It's very inefficient for a Morty's Hammer player to pick 2 screening units to afflict just to drop a squad of Deathshroud in. Because you can really control where they need to drop in that way. So I think there's actually a little bit of interesting counterplay there. Yeah, so I'm like I said, went ahead, kept Bring It Down. And then the second card that I draw here is Storm Hostile Objective. I mean, that's kind of a freebie, right? If I don't take this one from your Tyrannofex, then I'm kind of trolling. So we're going to go ahead and try to do that here. We can see already getting the Deathshroud positioned. Hopefully they'll land their 6 this turn. And we're just kind of trying to position optimally here. I think our Tallyman continues to be a hero and get us some CP. And in the upper right here, what we're trying to do is just position our lone up Lord of Virulence to make sure that we can get as many Virul 1s to wound vehicles as we can. That aura is only 3 inches on him, so it can be a little bit cumbersome, especially with this 5-inch move. But here we should be able to get it on all 3 of the vehicles as they blast into that Norn Cross Court. And these are really those angles that I wanted to set up on, before the game started. I talked about all those drones being up there for this exact reason, right? They can access the middle objective. They can access my quote-unquote expansion objective at the top. They can also have some kind of realistic shots into where that Norn wants to be on the bottom objective. So they're controlling some good space there. In the middle, it's a bit of a bummer that our Myphitic Blighthauler is locked in combat with a Lictor. He's going to be -1 to hit, which is kind of a shame, and he won't be able to get within Melter range, but he'll still be able to take some kind of decent shots at this Tyrannofex that's on my expansion as well. Maybe lend a little bit of firepower. And we're also kind of swarming on the bottom here. We really want to try to deny that objective if at all possible. We've dropped in our other squad of 3 Deathshroud, joined to the Lord of Virulence with free Overwatch. I really like this enhancement, especially I see it on the Lord of Contagion all the time, which is fine, obviously. But with the Lord of Virulence's reroll to wound in shooting attacks, that makes it very, very deadly. And I like that combo, even on a small 3-man for just barbecuing some small unit that comes forward to do an action or move block or something like that. Oh, and I actually do make the decision here to move my Lord of Virulence back to continue screening rather than supplying reroll 1s to wound. Well, after when we see the results of my shooting phase this turn, we'll talk about why this is a mistake. But really, I'm just trying to prevent you from. You've already drawn established locus, but you could still draw behind enemy lines or engage, and I want to make that spore mine not just get you some free points here. But this ends up being a bit of a mistake, and we'll talk about why a little later.
Yeah, if you had 2 Haruspexes on your home field, you might not think it was a terrible idea, but
oh, that's fair. You do still have a lot like truly in strategic reserves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do end up keeping these screening units back for multiple turns, which kind of decreases the amount of stuff I'm putting forward on the objectives. And this is something that I need to realize about taking hold is my home objective is only worth as much as every other expansion, right? Mm-hmm. It's an easy mistake to make, but unlike Linchpin, getting your home flipped isn't worth, 7 points. It's only worth 5. So sometimes it can be worth it to just accept that loss. But anyway, we've had our Lord of Virulences come down. So this one here on your expansion is going to nominate the Norn for 4 rolls to hit. And we're just going to kind of let her rip here. The drones really get a lot of that full rerolls because not only are they just hitting on 3s, but they also have lethal hits. So they're more likely to generate a lethal hit with that. Although the shot count is a little bit unreliable still, and unfortunately here we only do a grand total of 5 damage to your emissary between the entropy cannons on that crawler as well as both of the drones, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, she is Tonka tough sometimes.
Some damage is better than none, so we are getting there. And we still have other guns to shoot. Obviously, we did put one of the Plagueburst mortars into that single Ravener who was afflicted in your backfield. It was, again, the same afflicted target and did manage to kill him. And then we've also had our Lord of Virulence squad with the rerolls to wound, just annihilate that Neurolictor that was on your expansion. That's going to be really nice because I really don't want my army to be battle shocked here in the mid game. So getting rid of that piece is going to be really nice as well, especially so early on. So we're doing some good damage here. We saw you got to ingress your gargoyles there onto the middle objective. Could you talk a little bit about because you obviously have a lot in reserves right now. Which of the pieces are you looking to ingress against Death Guard and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pieces I've got the Zoanthropes, I've got the 2 Haruspex, I've got the Neurogons, I've got the Gargoyles. The Haruspexes are nice sometimes to ingress, but in this particular case, I think I've got plenty of resources where I need to go, and I just rather them come in from reserves of 6-inch charges, be a little more flexible. The Neurogons, similarly, very nice thing, not that great out of ingress. The Gargoyles here, deep striking into a whole bunch of things. For one, most importantly, they grab primary, right? Lukas, because he was in combat with the Lictor here, is not able to keep me from being able to deep strike onto this objective in the center. They also put a foot on the objective on the home field, which makes killing the Biowar a much less appealing option because it won't actually deny primary anymore. And then if he chooses to ignore the Gargoyles, this whole OC20 unit next turn is absolutely going to fly right on up and contest this primary out from under Lukas while move blocking everything he knows and loves in front of it, right? Like this is an absolute quintuple whammy of a squad activation. And instead, if he does choose to shoot at them, well, that's firepower that's getting drawn away from my Raveners in the back that I want to keep alive, my Biovore in the back that I want to keep alive, the Norn herself if he wants to put a drone into them, right? So this squad is getting a ton of value out of this just 1 CP, and it ends up working out really well. 9 of them end up dying, so we do just narrowly hold on to this center objective, but I'm very happy with the results of that play.
Yeah, and I think actually my killing of 9 of them was pretty fortuitous. I think it was just the Plagueburst crawler on my expansion shooting his mortar and stubbers in there, hitting on 3s and almost wiped the squad, which is a little bit ludicrous. Yeah. But yeah, with the auto pass, you'll be able to lock that down, which will be nice to get at least a 10 here. And the Lord of Contagion squad hits their 6-inch charge. Thank the good Lord. And unsurprisingly, clobbers the hell out of the Tyrannofex. AP3, Lance, lethal, sustained. It's kind of that offensive profile that the Tyrannofex really doesn't like. Like, lots of medium quality attacks with good AP where you don't get
rules is pretty good.
You don't get a ton of value out of your blank is the big one, right? If you can blank like a last cannon or a big multi-melta shot, it can be really annoying to kill one of those C12 monsters. But if you just hand them 25 saves at AP3, 2 damage, okay, dead.
Yeah. Not so much on the other flank, though, by the looks of it.
Yeah, the Lord of Virulence squads struggle a little bit in tougher targets. They really rely on that AP3 to get there, but if they're winning on 5s, they kind of struggle a little bit. So I think I managed to do 2 or 3 damage to you, and then you kill 2 of my Terminators in response, which is not ideal. Obviously, that Norn is on the objective in OC15, so I didn't actually deny that objective despite how much I've got in that area of the battlefield.
Norn power! Let's go!
Yeah. That's the power of the Norn. It's less that it, bullets toward your opponent and doesn't die, but that it kind of posts up on an area and takes an outsized amount of commitment to remove, especially while other things in the Subterranean assault list are doing more damage to you. So it's kind of your lowest priority to remove, but you have to if you want to deny primary. So it's a really powerful piece.
Totally. With Gargoyles and Neurogaunts and all sorts of 6-inch charging nonsense, OC4 Haruspexes, right? The general plan for this list and for Subterranean Assault as a whole, in my mind at least, is I get 10s while you get 5s, right? The Norn is going to hold down a point, and the Neurolictor is going to help out in case you try to get cheeky about it, while I just continue to knock you off your expansion and whittle down your resources with high OC and high durability. So being able to continue on with that plan at least another turn is going to be great for her. She's also wholly within 9 of this token because she just got out of it, so she can also heal in this detachment, which is awesome. I think I ended up deciding against that and regret it, but it's a great thing to look out for. So what were your secondaries that turn, Lucas?
So I kept the Bring It Down, which I got for killing a Tyrannofex, and then I also drew Storm Hostile Objective, which I got for killing a Tyrannofex. Thanks for standing on my objective, man. Moron.
Anytime, brother. All right, so because our Gargoyle is hanging out here and gets auto-passed, and our OC15 Norn is over here to your at most 12 from these 2 units, we will score a 5, 10, 15 on primary. That is a hell of a lead to get up to early, which is awesome, but we'll also need to be careful that we don't start suddenly handing you challenger cards as a result of it. Fortunately, our secondaries are pretty well lined up for that. We draw Sabotage and Engage. Sabotage isn't going to work to a challenger card because it takes a whole turn, and I'm not really looking to engage a whole lot here. I'm kind of just looking to whittle down what's right in front of me. So that's where we're going to go with that. We consider a lot of options for where this Gargoyle is going to go. I think at the end of the day, I decided to just send him home because it doesn't make sense to try to get a second point for engage secondaries because they'll give you a challenger card because you're going to be at, 4, 8, 12, 17. So if I'm at 5, 4, 7, 22. No, if I'm at 5, 4, I'm at 19, no big deal. But if I get the 20, yeah, it's good. If I get one more point, am I in trouble? Sorry, it's late. I can't do math. But it was decided to send the Gargoyle home eventually. Now, Lukas has kind of done this sort of half commitment thing, right? His pieces are up a little bit, but they're not really bearing down on me everywhere, right? These guys are kind of out in the middle of nowhere with nothing really immediate for them to go after. These drones similarly kind of all the way back. Obviously this Myphitic is kind of up here, but basically everything else can be removed this turn. So when your opponent does that, when they don't quite force everything out, when they try to sit back, if you have a range advantage or functionally a range advantage because you move infinity inches, it's often correct to take a step back instead of a step forward to allow them to crash back into you, right? So I am going this turn to try to do as much damage to Lukas while mitigating the crackback that he can put into me as much as possible. How effective is this actually going to be? Great question. Let's watch and find out. But that's the idea, at least in theory. So our Tyrant's going to run backwards. Our Tyrannofex is going to walk backwards. She's going to take shots over here, hopefully blow this thing up. The Norn will help, hopefully blow this thing up. And then our Zone Throps are going to waltz on in, and they're going to shoot this way into the... what are they called? The Deathshroud. Lucky for them, their range is 18 at the shortest, and the Deathshroud have a maximum threat range of 17. So they can pretty comfortably sit back and just hose them for free. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of ability to clap back with the various vehicles moving up forward, but that's just going to put them back in a place where I can hit them again. So seems fine. We end up bringing in our Raveners in a very funny spot here. They end up coming in And I'll stack them up in a second to do sabotage, because they'll all be just outside of the DZ there, bringing in another tunnel marker only slightly further forward than the previous one. What that's going to let me do is bring out my Neurogaunts on the objective, which is a great spot for them, and go for some nice easy charges into these midfield Myphitics. Idea is to shoot this one down, charge into this one just like last turn, and once again keep Lukas from getting any activation out of that guy, as now he will actually have no targets. While also pressuring primary, right? If he just sits there, he might be in trouble. Naturally, this is going to give the Deathshroud a place to come charge, which is kind of a bummer, but ooh, man. Talk about them zone throps, dude. Yikes. That's a hell of an activation right there. They pick up, I think it's like 4.5 of the Deathshroud. Jesus. Maybe the Tyrant does some work first.
Yes, the Tyrant, all 3 of the Tyrant shots went through.
Yeah. He kills like 1.5, and then the Stone Throps kill 3 more. Gross. Sweet. On the other flank, however, the shooting phase is not so effective. I'm also going to bring in this Haruspex over here. Go for, I think it ends up being like a 7 or an 8-inch charge to get her on the wall, unfortunately, but I just need more OC on this point because I know that Norn's not going to be here forever. So if he can hit the charge, great. If not, he'll go up and do it next turn. Not a big deal. He does hit the charge. Look at him go. So we'll try to take down the boys here and just mitigate it effects there. But yeah, so even despite the Tyrannofex and the Norn, that frickin' Myphitic walks away with like 1 or 2 wounds, which is infuriating. Which leads me to make a really bad decision, which is that I end up charging him with the Neurogaunts here instead of charging my original target. This is going to backfire terribly. I was looking for this like very low odds chance that if sometimes doesn't matter, that I'm able to clip this guy down or that maybe mitigating his damage helps. I wasn't thinking about the fact that Mortarion's hammer vehicles can move through walls, so this guy can just waltz right through here and apply fire and whatnot. Just a really questionable decision on my part. I should have stuck with plan A and not gotten so easily sidetracked when things didn't go quite as expected. Yeah, we'll at least keep him tied up for a minute and off the point. Not that does a whole lot, but it sure makes me happy. Looks like your Deathshroud are swinging on back into the Norn, and they do a decent ship of damage. I think the first 5 phase they did barely anything, but then this time they do a little bit better. So
yeah, I think they knock you down from 11 to 7 here, if memory serves.
Yeah, that sounds right. And this is where I kind of gulp and go, oh crap, I really should have healed this guy, especially if both of these are shooting at me instead of neither of them potentially. So we'll see how that goes. We are able to knock down that last Deathshroud, and I think we also do a little bit of damage to the character, but especially with that 4-up Feel No Pain as a persisting effect, because that 1 piddly wound was still on the Deathshroud at the start of the fight phase, start of the activation rather. You are hanging on with your Lord of Virulence there, who's going to be a massive pain in my side as he enables all of your damage to activate while the other one's out in Guam over there. So,
yep.
As you can see, we go back and forth on the correct position of the Gargoyle, decide that it's better to not give a challenger card, just keep him back, score 1 whole point on engage. So kind of a low-looking turn on secondary, but very high on primary, and then the sabotage will come around in a second, so feels all right. What are we doing going into top of 3, Lukas?
So we are just shy of scoring a challenger card, unfortunately, but we are getting our first 10 here, although it will be subject to some Shadows leadership checks. We are drawing some secondaries that are kind of conducive to where we are on the board, especially because the Neurogants did not charge the Myphitic Blighthauler that I have in the middle of the table. The fact that I just drew Area Denial and Recover Assets is going to be nice and easy for him. He's going to be able to bullet into the middle through walls, get 5 points on Area Denial, and then depending on how my shooting phase goes, he can either lend some shots to the Norn, or he can recover assets for an extra 3 points. And it's looking like this is a pretty close game. I've done a lot better than you on secondary so far, but you've done a lot better on primary. So the 3 points might be kind of nice, even if I, it means I run a little light on CP. So we can see those shadows checks coming in here. Both of our bloat drones fail on the top. Our Deathshroud have failed, but our PBC stands strong. Let's go. And so does our Lord of Virulence in combat with your Norn, even at -2 leadership. He embodies the Death Guard way of what's the word I'm looking for? Just apathy. He just doesn't care about your bullshit. He's just gonna stand there and take it and apply one more turn of rerolls to hit onto your Norn, and hopefully our drones can do a little bit better this time.
Yeah. In addition to the primary, which obviously would have been nice, but he's got 2 units on both, so it's not super realistic. The shadows here is kind of really a Hail Mary play to prevent this Blighthauler from biting me in the ass for not tagging it, to turn off its ability to walk through walls and its ability to score area denial, because I've already seen that Lukas has drawn that. Would be real lovely, but no such luck. That thing is running right through the wall and into my face.
Yep. Yeah, he's gonna be a nice asset here. And unfortunately, the Deathshroud at the top of the table here are a little bit stranded. Right, they're not really. They're helping to control that top center objective. Ugh, that Overwatch was nasty, by the way. +1 to wound from the Neurotyrant while I'm battle shocked. Actually, a very relevant rule into Deathshroud. With your strength 5 flamer and your strength 7 blast weapons. Do the blasts have lethal as well, or is it just the las cannon?
So just the las cannon, but they can get lethal for being within 6 of the walk rent.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, either way, +1 to wound on those shots is big time value. So I think our Contagion Lord escapes from that with like 2 wounds left or something ridiculous. So he's gonna go cower behind the wall, as is his birthright. But here we are, your monsters can kind of teleport around and do damage if they want to, but here we really need to make sure that zone throw unit is not going to get a full strength activation again. So we've afflicted them with Mortarion's Hammer. We've also afflicted our Tyrant, who's the only other thing that's like kind of relevant that I'll want to shoot at this turn, perhaps. I end up not really having the spare shots for it, but we are going to let the Plagueburst Mortars and the associated Mortals raid in on the Zoanthropes and hope to cripple that brick. Everything on the bottom of the table right now is already afflicted because of our surviving 1 zombie, who, I will remind you, Mr. Bortel did 1 damage to your Haruspex. Tremble in fear once more.
I don't know how you survived out of that. 14 attacks, 3 roll 1s into 2s, 4 attacks. Oh, and my Norn's dead too. Never mind. Okay. Fair enough.
Pew, pew, pew. My zombies are heroes. I need you to know this. So yeah, I think that was the hauler and the 2 drones that are battle shocked on my expansion right now, just killing him, which does let my mid-board Myphitic recover assets as well as the Tallyman. So that's going to give me a nice 8 points on secondary, which is going to be sweet. In addition to the 10 that I got on primary, thanks to the Brave Beaver, the Plagueburst Crawler, and my expansion objective. So that's going to be nice. Yeah, and we can see the shots rattling in here on those Zoanthropes. I think we're on our 2nd crawler now. We're down to 3 Zoes left and the Tyrant. Down to 2 now. It's kind of nice to kind of mix and mash the 2 damage from the Mortar in addition to the 1 damage from the Stubber for the 1 guy who can see, as well as the Mortals, just making the damage very efficient. It's very rare that you'll be losing any damage going into the 3 wound models if you're supplementing with the Stubbers as well. And hitting on 3s makes a surprising amount of difference. So getting line of sight with the crawlers is definitely something that I'm learning to get better at. For instance, this one that's on my home objective right now is a little bit mispositioned. It should be 3 inches further back, so we can throw some supplemental las cannons into that. Whatchamacallit? Haruspex. Yeah. The las cannons, especially when you're down to toughness, 4 up armor and toughness 10. Once you get past that wounding on 4 step, it's pretty much just guaranteed, taking 3, 4, 5 wound chunks out of you every single time. So they add up in a big hurry.
Absolutely. With the Norn going down, I am very glad that my Haruspex managed to hit that charge there. That's my only real source of OC on that point. I was going to keep my primary in a pretty good spot. But yeah, we definitely have lost a lot of assets now. Of those 4 big ones. And to start with, we've lost most of the zones, one of the Tyrannofexes and the Norn. We've just uppy downied the Tyrannofex here using the Hive Tyrant to get him into a slightly more effective position. In particular, I kind of want him in a spot to both take a shot and and not be getting shot back so much, and be ready to move on to this objective in the near future as well. Consider a couple different positions for him, because I really do want to dogpile on my like pseudo expansion over here. So we'll see what we can do about that. Cards wise, we are drawing Area Denial and Secure No Man's Land. Those two tend to go hand in hand, which is real nice. So we've got to go after him here. But it's a little bit tricky, right? Because I don't super duper trust a Haruspex to kill a Blighthauler. And if I don't, that Area Denial is going to get mitigated. But if I do, that Secure gets mitigated. I do send a Gargoyle over there, ready for the future turns, but she actually can't even do anything right now because she's battle shocked, which is a bummer, but I've already auto-passed that exact unit score primary before, so I can't complain too much. She'll just be in a good spot to either heal her way out later or just jump on that point in the future. We send in the Haruspex in this middle spot out here where he's got 6-inch charges in both directions, and this is basically what we decide. We say we're going to shoot with our with the Haruspex tongue maybe, but also with the Rupture Cannon, try to blow this guy up. If we don't, we'll still have a 6-inch charge in here to go take the point. If we do, as we did in that case, and then he exploded and killed my Gargoyle, jerk. If we do, no big deal. We can just charge over here instead and still get to some relative safety, get more OC on this point, and instead we'll just spawn a Spore Mine over here because while Spore Mines cannot do actions, they can score Area Denial. So I'll have to settle for just 2 points on Secure No Man's Land. Unless there's nothing going crazy up here because these all had to advance to get their shots off. But I will get my full 5 for Area Denial here. Up top, we throw the kitchen sink at this drone and he limps out with like 1 or 2 wounds, I think, which is very annoying. But it just kind of is what it is. The idea here is really just to kind of be a big distraction Carnifex and force Lukas to send resources in this direction and not just blow everything off my expansion over here. And at the same time, the Tyrant is, kind of a force to be reckoned with in and of himself. He's real good at punching any of these things out. So we'll see if he can get some utility out of his melee as well. You'll notice that our Raveners who started over here literally just ran backwards toward the home field to be safe. Didn't need them to tunnel anywhere. Just wanted a second unit touching the home field so that Lukas doesn't get cheeky with his Plagueburst crawlers and do exactly what he's doing right now anyway. Fair enough. But be ready to uppy downy for another turn later on. So that'll be me. We'll score some points as discussed. I'll clock it over to you, Lukas, for another 10. Cannot get you off that expansion.
Yeah, we're starting to accrue some primary here, which is going to be nice, just trudging forward, as is the way of the Urfather. And we got some another set of good secondaries here. We got Overwhelming Force and Display of Might. We kind of got a roughly equivalent number of units in the midfield now. But hopefully after I clean up one or both of these Haruspexes and hopefully the Neurogans as well, we will be ahead on number of units and can score 4 points on that. And then Overwhelming Force, that's going to be the Spore Mine in the middle of the table, as well as one or both of the Haruspexes on your expansion. So that should be 3 points at least, if not 5. So that'll be a nice score as well. So as much as we are struggling in the primary department, we just keep hitting 3, 4, and 5 point secondaries on our draws, which is going to be really nice. I do have a lot of CP to spare, so it's not like I can't recycle these to try to find better ones if absolutely need be. But it is nice that I can instead spend all my CP on doing damage here. I'm going to have a bunch of spare for like grenades and tank shock here just to slam max damage down on what you have left on the top side of the map. I do nominate your units at the top of the on the far left of the table on your home objective for a Morty's Hammer this turn, but I don't foresee myself having spare shots to throw into them. I'm more focused on dealing with these Haruspexes because they're an immediate problem for my Plagueburst crawlers. I want those guys to keep shooting for the last couple turns of the game here. And ultimately the stuff on your home objective is going to uppy downy go for a charge, or it's going to continue sitting there. I don't really have the shots to spare for the Biobor at this point. So yeah, here we come. I think the Lord of Contagion comes out, throws a pretty nice grenade. That is one really wonderful part about the Lord of Contagion that is not a super well-known fact, is that he actually has grenades. So when he deep strikes at 6 inches using the Deathshroud rule, he's able to throw grenades as well, which is a really powerful tool. And that cleans up the last couple of the Zoanthropes there. And then this Plagueburst Crawler is continuing to do a ton of work on the top of the table, putting a couple wounds on the Neurotyrant, and then the Lord of Contagion should be able to charge in there and do some more damage. And this is kind of what I was talking about with the Lord of Virulence in the upper right here. I would love to have his point and click rerolls at this stage of the game. Instead, he is... I think here, actually, he is scoring a challenger card, which we neglected to note on our scorecard. But I did draw the you have to be more than 18 inches away from friendlies, and you do an action to score 3 points. Didn't change the differential in this case. But he does wander off back that way to do that. But overall, I think he would have been much more impactful this game, especially like as early as turn 3, wandering forwards and starting to apply those rerolls down this lane and down this lane as well. A lot of the Death Guard guns are really dependent on rerolls because they're a little inconsistent otherwise. They're kind of like, strength 8, strength 10. So the strength isn't super great. They really like those lethals. And you can only really get a lot volume of reliable lethals if you have rerolls. So I think that probably would have been a little better of a use for him this game. And unfortunately, he is a bit of a 110 point dead weight in my backfield this game, which is a bit of a bummer. That is something that I really think I mismanaged this game. Is I allocated a lot to screening when I probably should have cut my losses on turn 3 and started pushing forward. This Crawler here, for example, is doing a great job being on this objective with OC3 and tying stuff up. That's really where you want, in every matchup where your opponent doesn't have overwhelming anti-tank firepower, and even in this game you have quite a lot of it, you have a plethora of targets. You're going to get to shoot into something that's a good target regardless. You really want to be pushing forward with those Crawlers to let the mortar hit on 3s and get those entropy cannons going. And sure, if you want to shoot at the toughest of my 8 vehicles, then go right ahead. But, this guy that's on my home objective, who's been there the whole game, has only been shooting his mortar. That's not 200 points of value. So just good learnings for the Plagueburst Crawlers. You can kind of afford to throw them forward depending on the matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are the tricky piece, I think, of this army to manage. It's them and the Deathshrouds in terms of needing to make sure you're managing things carefully. So aspiring Death Guard players, keep them in mind. Do not, as Lukas was saying, just play them on autopilot in the backfield. Get them involved. Alrighty, now, as you did manage to somehow kill both of my Haruspexes, and comfortably as well, Death Guard damage is just so high. I definitely underestimated that. We're not able to hold that expansion primary there, so going into turn 4, I'm only getting a 5, which is still putting me up 5 on primary, but especially with that challenger card, things get a little sketchy here. Fortunately, our cards, No Prisoners and Overwhelming Force, seem a little bit more achievable, right? We've got a bunch of things and objectives, a bunch of stuff we want to kill. We're going to send for it. I'm going to drop in my Raveners here. Outside of 6, we'll put 3 of them on the objective because Lukas is only barely towed on, so it's contested in the first place. And then if we hit our 6-inch charge here, I have faith in them to get the job done. Our Tyrant last turn, sorry to mention this, he heroiced in over here when you charged the Zoanthropes, and he was able to do a lot of damage to the BBC last turn. This turn he kills it. Hell yeah, dude. And then last but not least, this T-Fex does nothing, I think. That sounds right.
I think he cross-corded and killed the drone on my expansion, and that's what gave you the second lot of overwhelming
cross-cords here, and then he charges in. That's what's going on. He charged. Yeah, totally. Cool. Good work on him. We do then fail our 6-inch rollable charge here into the middle, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. Glad we can test the point anyway. We'll grab 9 points of secondary. Top 5, Lukas. What's it going to be? Take us home.
We get a 5 on primary, which is definitely not ideal, and we're just trying to do as much damage as we can here. We draw Assassinate and Tempting Target, so I kind of have a little bit of a dilemma of whether or not to throw my last remaining drone into the Tyrant to get Assassinate, or to go for an 8-inch rerollable charge into the Neurogants to get Tempting Target. I make the decision that the 8 rerolling is a little bit more consistent of a play. So I end up discarding Assassinate for Defend Stronghold, which is going to be a nice easy 3. And so here we're just going to try to shoot away as much as possible, pick up these Raveners so they don't do an action in the late game, keep your Tyrannofex in combat where he'll no longer be able to uppy downy, clean up the Neurogants. So we're just kind of cleaning up everything that isn't Biovore Tyrannofex Tyrant. And we're going to save a CP as well for the 8-inch rerollable charge for our drone to charge into your Neurogants there. And that's using the Morty's Hammer strat to move through walls, which you can do in the charge phase as well.
I also want to draw attention to, I think one of the really important plays here that's easy to miss is this move block on the top here. That man is a piece of work. He is making my life radically more complicated than I'd like it to be.
Yeah, I was so excited about preventing that Tyrant from potentially preventing the Tyrant from getting on the objective. But unfortunately, because you have uppy downy access, you can just teleport to the middle. That may have been a more rewarding play if I had one more screening piece to be able to go onto the middle objective on the bottom in the last turn.
Yeah, but it was just a matter of if you wanted how much you wanted to go for this 8. I think there was an argument. No, it's not an argument. Yeah, so is what it is. And yeah, bottom 5 will come on in here. Nothing too crazy to do. We draw Storm Hostile and recover assets. Recover is easy enough, but Storm really just requires that I unseat my expansion out from under you, which just means killing a drone. Sure enough, T-Fex comes in clutch. We punt that thing into the sun, and we call it a day. So with that all finished up, we do get our 15. I guess in theory the Tyrant hasn't moved yet, but we do get our 15 with the Tyrant in the middle there, and the T-Fex out-OCing 5-3 on the PBC. So we'll get our 15, we'll get our 4 on Storm and our 3 on Recover for a final score of 86 to, what is this, 80 actually? Let me put the Challenger card back in there correctly. Right. 86 to 80, which is an 11-9 win for the Tyranids. So super good one there. Really fun game, man. Lots of back and forth, tight pieces, interesting trade dynamics and angles to figure out. What are you thinking so far?
Yeah, this was a very interesting game. This game was very informative. I'm definitely trying to learn this faction. It plays a little bit slower and more measured than the other factions that I'm used to. Chaos Knights and Orcs are both. You're paying like I guess when I'm saying this, I'm thinking of Chaos Knights in the index days. You're paying for more expensive pieces that are better damage dealers than they are at absorbing damage, and that's kind of turned on its head with Death Guard, right? They do a fair amount of damage and they have a good number of tools, but ultimately you need to be willing to take some hits to implement your primary game plan. And I think this game you did a great job of punishing one of the weaknesses of Death Guard that I need to get better at as I'm kind of exploring that avenue, which is primary control, right? Like the army is kind of reliant on very squishy zombies to hold objectives. And other than that, it's either Deathshroud landing charges and standing there, or a vehicle making their way onto the objective with a blast weapon where they kind of don't want to be tied up in combat. So at some point, you need to be willing to make some sacrifices and determine what's the thing that I'm willing to give up in order to try to get some primary here. Or do I need to just take some risks and try to body my opponent with damage so that I can stand on the objectives later? It's kind of a fun pull and pull. Sorry, a fun push-pull, at least from the Death Guard perspective of how do I kind of min-max this? And usually it just looks like you try to bombard them to death on turns 1 through 3, but that doesn't always work, right? Like this Tyranids army you have is not, like we've talked about on the show, not known for its durability, but you're still able to, through your mobility and the couple of like semi-sticky pieces you have with the Tyrannofexes and Norns, keep me bogged down for long enough that I can't really run up the primary on you on the midfield objectives. It's basically just my expansion every once in a while and my home objective. How do we combat this as Mortarion's Hammer players? Well, I think we need to be willing to throw our pieces forward a little bit more. This Plagueburst Crawler that's on my home objective didn't really contribute to the game. It killed a couple of Raveners. It killed a couple of Zoanthropes. That's helpful, but it could have done that while pushing forward as well. This guy on the bottom of the table finally got the memo on turn 4 or 5 and is making his way onto the objective and creating problems, right? He tied down the Tyrannofex in the last turn, but he should have been doing that on turns 3 and 4 as well, rather than just on turn 5. We can see my most effective Plagueburst crawler was the one that's actually dead right now on the top of the table, because it moved forward, it got its shots hitting on 3s, it added its entropy cannons stubber to the mix, and then it charged in, soaked up some attention. It got some tank shocks in. It's not bad in combat as well when you factor in like the -1 armor at just killing a Ravener, killing a couple little morons. And it doesn't mind just kind of sitting there in combat while being on an objective taking up space. So that's really my biggest learning from this game, is like which pieces to be aggressive with, because I lost my drones too early, but I didn't lose my PBCs at all, and I feel like that was a mistake. But overall, good learnings. This is a very fun army. It's not playing with a lot of trash, which has its own set of fun, unique challenges that I'm still getting used to as a player. I'm not used to that kind of style. So
nice. Yeah, I similarly have been enjoying playing with a little bit less trash in this mission pack, because it's not quite as necessary, and I've been enjoying kind of learning a couple new things in terms of 40k. Trying to focus on things like lane control, playing with ranges, assessing threat levels in various positions, and trying to be thinking a turn or two ahead. So I've been having a lot of fun with this kind of big boy time army, doing things a little bit differently than I do with a lot of the hordes that I'm used to playing with. Always trying to grow as a player, and it helps when you get to push big stompy monsters around. So that's a lot of fun as well. So I'm certainly looking forward to playing in this army at Warmasters. We'll see how we do with it. Hopefully I'm able to get this up before the event. We'll see what the editing's like. We've got a lot to do between now and WTC. But if you want to, are curious about this game, these lists, or anything else that we've got to tell you about, you can drop it in the comments, or if you want to make sure you get to us directly, head on over to our Discord, linked through the Patreon in the YouTube description. If you want to get a little bit more one-on-one attention, or want to play a game like this and review it like this, you can do that over at stat-check.com/coaching, where Lukas, myself, the rest of the Stat Check coaches are all available, including Innes Wilson, our boy Nicholas Olsen-Johnson, Pumba from Team Poland, and recent additions, we've got Nassim Fashan and Liam VSL as well. So lots of great people to help you out if you're interested in getting the one-on-one attention to take your 40K to the next level. We'd also like to thank the sponsors. You can find them in the description. They offer some great discounts. Anything else, Lukas, before we sign off for the week?
No, sir.
Wonderful. Well, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Lukas.
And we'll catch you in the next one. Go USA. Take care, everyone.
For Nurgle.